Nosferatu.
Nosferatu, just the name alone sends a chill down your spine. Since its first appearance on the screen in 1922, the character of Count Orlok has become one of the most iconic and terrifying figures in horror cinema. While every version of Nosferatu has its own way of haunting audiences, some renditions of the vampire stand out as particularly unsettling. Welcome back to your nerdy show. I'm your host, Spoiler Master. So today, we're going to dive into what makes the most terrifying version of Nosferatu stand out from the others, and which portrayal of Count Orlok will send the biggest shivers down your spine. Nosferatu, 1922, The Birth of Terror. To truly understand the most terrifying version of Nosferatu, we have to start with the original, the 1922 silent film directed by F.W. Murnau. This film, which was actually an unofficial adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, is often hailed as one of the greatest horror films of all time. Why? Because it introduced audiences to Count Orlok, a vampire who was far more grotesque than any other vampire we'd seen before. Count Orlok, played by Max Schreck, is a far cry from the suave, charismatic Dracula. Orlok is tall, skeletal, and unsettlingly gaunt, with long, claw-like fingers that seem to reach out for your soul. His face is an unnerving combination of sharp angles and exaggerated features, and his body moves in a way that feels both stiff and unnatural. What makes Orlok in this version so terrifying is the raw, primal fear he exudes. There's no hiding his monstrous nature. He is evil, pure and simple. And because we're dealing with a silent film, everything is amplified. The haunting, eerie atmosphere created by the visuals, the shadows that seem to twist around Orlok's figure, and the sense of dread that builds with every scene. This Nosferatu is terrifying because of how it taps into the primal fear of the unknown. Orlok isn't just a monster of the night, he's a force of nature, unstoppable and horrifying in his pursuit of his prey. The way the film uses its limited technology to create eerie effects only enhances the terror, making it a truly groundbreaking and unforgettable version of Nosferatu. Nosferatu, the Vampire, 1979, The Tragic Monster, the 1979 remake, Nosferatu, Nosferatu the Vampire, directed by Werner Herzog, takes the terror of the 1922 original and adds layers of emotional depth. While still unsettling, Herzog's version of Count Orlok, played by Klaus Kinski, is not just a soulless monster. In fact, this Orlok is deeply tragic, filled with loneliness and longing. Kinski's performance is chilling, with his wild eyes and unsettling movements creating a vampire who feels like a broken creature, a being tortured by his own cursed existence. What makes this version particularly terrifying is the way Herzog blends the horror with emotional depth. Orlok's pursuit of Lucy, the equivalent of Ellen in the original, feels more like a desperate obsession rather than just a predatory act. The atmosphere of Nosferatu the Vampire is haunting, with stark cinematography that emphasizes isolation and decay. The use of shadows, the haunting soundtrack, and the eerie visuals contribute to the terror, but it's Kinski's performance that truly makes this version stand out. He plays Orlok as a being who is both frightening and pitiable, which makes his monstrous acts even more disturbing. You can't help but feel sorry for him, even as he's hunting down his victims, making him a complex and deeply unsettling version of the character. Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror, 2023, The Digital Nightmare. Fast forward to 2023 with Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror, a shot-for-shot remake of the original, and we see a more modern take on the classic story. Directed by David Lee Fisher, this version attempts to blend the eerie, timeless visuals of the 1922 film with modern digital technology. The most terrifying aspect of this version is the way it uses digital effects to enhance the nightmare-like quality of Orlok's presence. Doug Jones, known for his roles in Guillermo del Toro films like Pan's Labyrinth and The Shape of Water, portrays Count Orlok, and his portrayal is haunting in a completely different way, while still sticking to the classic ghoulish look of the original Orlok: pale skin, gaunt features, and long claws, Jones's movements are more fluid and exaggerated, adding an almost surreal quality to his presence. The use of digital effects gives Orlok an otherworldly feel, and his interaction with the world around him feels even more alien. The technology used to create his environment often makes everything feel dreamlike and unreal, which adds to the sense of unease. This version is terrifying in a more abstract sense. The combination of classic eerie imagery with modern digital techniques creates a world that feels out of time, a dreamlike nightmare that you can't wake up from. While it might not have the same psychological depth as Herzog's 1979 version, this Nosferatu is unsettling in its own unique way, creating a modern digital nightmare that feels just as disorienting and horrifying as the original.
Angel, a spirit of comfort.
Nosferatu, 2024, The Return of Pure Horror. Finally, we come to the upcoming 2024 version of Nosferatu, directed by Robert Eggers. Known for his atmospheric, tension-filled films like The Witch and The Lighthouse, Eggers is bringing his unique brand of horror to this legendary story. While not much has been revealed about the film's plot or visual style, we know one thing for certain. Eggers has a knack for making even the most familiar horror stories feel fresh and terrifying. What makes the 2024 Nosferatu potentially the most terrifying version of all is Eggers' ability to create a palpable sense of dread and unease. With his previous films, Eggers has shown an uncanny ability to craft slow burn horror that builds tension in the most unsettling ways. If the 2024 version of Nosferatu is anything like The Witch or The Lighthouse, it will likely focus heavily on atmosphere, building up a sense of terror that gets under your skin. In Eggers' Nosferatu, Orlok, played by Bill Skarsgård, has a distinct look, unrecognizable with pointy ears, buck teeth, and a hunch, but with some stark differences. Most notably, he now has a mustache, and his skin is decayed and festering, making him even harder to look at than before. Unlike the original Orlok, whose appearance was marked by a pristine cloak, this version's horrific, sore-ridden flesh makes him disturbingly grotesque. What's more terrifying is how he feeds, sucking blood from his victim's chest in a much more visceral, almost animalistic way, all while convulsing over their unconscious bodies. Eggers' design choices elevate Orlok to a level of raw, uncomfortable horror that wasn't possible in earlier portrayals, making this version of Nosferatu arguably the most unsettling of them all. But I personally didn't like the mustache look. Our nerdy thoughts. The most terrifying Nosferatu. So which version of Nosferatu is the most terrifying? It depends on what you find most frightening. If you're looking for a classic, unsettling portrayal that pioneered modern horror, the 1922 version will always hold a special place in the genre. But if you're after a more emotionally complex and disturbing version, Herzog's 1979 Nosferatu the Vampire offers a mix of terror and tragedy that makes Orlok a deeply haunting figure. For those who enjoy modern digital horror with an eerie, dreamlike quality, the 2023 version will give you that surreal nightmare you can't shake off. And the 2024 version promises to bring back the raw terror with Eggers at the helm, possibly delivering the most visceral portrayal yet. At the end of the day, Count Orlok is terrifying in every form, whether he's a cold, monstrous predator or a tortured soul yearning for connection. Each version brings something different to the table, but all are united by the same truth. Nosferatu is one of the most terrifying creatures to ever stalk the screen. Let me know in the comments which version of Nosferatu you think is the most terrifying, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the best horror films.
Nosferatu.
Now what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.